Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
All right, welcome in, Mackey and Judd. Daily Minnesota sports entertainment, speculation, therapy, and we have the NFL owners meetings happening. Where is this taking place?
Florida.
Okay.
I believe it's at the Breakers Hotel, if I'm not mistaken.
Because I saw Kevin Clark from, is he at the Athletic now? He was at the Ringer before. I think he's at the Ringer still. Sorry, there's a lot of movement in NFL media. So Kevin Clark tweeted out, this might only be relevant to Declan and I, but in the hotel lobby bar area last night, Tony Schiavone came walking through. So Tony Schiavone is a longtime wrestling voice. I think he's also been like Braves play-by-play and stuff, but
Sure.
But he has most recently been one of the main voices of AEW wrestling. And apparently he was just meandering through the NFL owners meeting bar, and one of the GMs got up, Tony Schiavone, and made Schiavone like put him in a headlock and stuff.
So they're in Palm Beach, Florida. Last night, what you're talking about too was the greatest, I believe, media opportunity of the year. This includes the combine. The owners and coaches have a dinner that is open to the media who are covering it. And let me just tell you right now, you talk about people who get sauced, don't think about what they're saying and spill secrets. This is the greatest night. I covered this in 2000.
Let me tell you something about overtime.
I covered this in 2010.
We almost got Brady.
That's basically it. That's you're not far off. I mean, they are relaxed. The guard is down.
Secret here.
The hotel is just, they're always a luxurious resort. In fact, I covered the one in 2010, Orlando, at the hotel that tragically Saget died. That gorgeous hotel. And that's the one where it was after the Vikings lost in the 2009 conference title game, where they passed the first overtime rule that a team couldn't win the game on a field goal.
Yeah.
They did it. This is the greatest. The owners wanted to pass that rule, especially Goodell. So what they did was they waited till the coaches went on their annual golf outing to get all drunk, and they passed the rule with them gone. So the coaches got no say. They couldn't weigh in. And coming off the golf course into the lobby, we got Sean Payton, who must have been several cocktails in, and he was pissed. And it was glorious.
What did he care at that point? They just won a Super Bowl. Change all the rules for
these guys are control freaks. Yes. They're absolute control freaks. But anyway, this is that thing last night is just a gold mine of drunk older guys who don't contain themselves.
I also love when some of these coaches reach the F-it level where they've been around long enough, they've made millions of dollars, then they wear the Tommy Bahama flowered pattern shirt, right? Like some of the guys are like, wear a tie and a jacket or a golf shirt. No, if you're Andy Reid and Ron Rivera, you've been around the block for 20 years. I'm going to wear a flower pattern.
Doug Peterson's back in an ugly shirt, and he don't care.
Oh man. So all right, we'll get into who gets it, who doesn't later on in the show here. But something interesting that Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell said today about the offensive line. So yesterday, the Vikings signed Jesse Davis, who was the starting right tackle for the Miami Dolphins, who had a terrible offensive line last year, like one of the worst offensive lines in the last 10 years of the NFL. And so he played mostly right tackle, but among 215 qualified offensive linemen last year of all positions, Jesse Davis was fourth most in pressures allowed. Now he's better at right guard in his career, but by better I mean like he's better than Oli Udoh at right guard.
Yeah.
He's still pretty bad at right guard.
Yep.
But they signed him. It's a 1-year contract. The Vikings offensive line coach, is it Chris Cooper, C-U-P-E-R? Is that how we pronounce it?
I believe that's correct.
So they've spent some time, I believe, together. So anyways, Kevin O'Connell was asked, and Chad Graff has this transcript at the press conference this morning. Actually, this would have been at the breakfast, right? Or it's just kind of an informal breakfast. Or Well, I got questions about that too. We'll go back to that.
Everybody with a large headache and bottle of aspirin.
So remind me to come back to, let's ask Judd about the coach's breakfast. But Kevin O'Connell said there will be an open competition at right guard for the Vikings. So they're not, if you're waiting, not that there's like a bunch of options out there, because pretty much all the guards are off the board.
Right.
But if you were waiting for some sort of big splash, I mean, we were talking about Brandon Scherf, he signed 2 weeks ago. There will be no big splash at right guard. There will be an open competition. And Kevin O'Connell said new signee Jesse Davis may be the front runner, but he's not being handed the job. Quote from Kevin O'Connell, there's plenty of coaches in this room right now who are talking about 2 or 3 or 4 spots on the offensive line coming together, while the Vikings have one job open officially at right guard. So they're basically, as I translate this, I think, they still have room if they want. They could sign a J.C. Tretter. Got to get that name out there once a day on these shows. But as of right now, they're going to run it back with 4 incumbents at left tackle, left guard, center, right tackle, and an open competition among backup caliber players for the most part at right guard. So, I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Confusion.
It's so weird, dude. It's
frustration.
So weird.
Okay, so let's start off by saying this. I now have gotten my head around the fact that they aren't going to make the changes that I thought. And you know what? Okay, let's talk about the plan now, right? Because like it's clear.
So you were.
Well, I thought they were going to make more changes than they.
Which means you were.
I'm yet to be proven correct.
Okay.
Anyway, yes, I was wrong in what I thought that they might do. But anyway, so let's move. Let's plow ahead and discuss what's going on right now. So they're bringing Kirk back, and they feel that they can maximize Kirk. Who knows? I don't think they can, but let's just say that they can. All right. So of all the things they're doing, wouldn't the way to absolutely maximize Kirk and say, like, we can do a lot here, but he needs some help, which by the way, I'm willing to not rip him for. He just needs some help. I don't think the center works. And I don't know that having an open competition at right guard where the candidates are the guys that we're talking about, Jesse Davis, Udo, Wyatt Davis perhaps emerges, I hope, I guess. But I guess, Phil, the word I would use is I'm perplexed, because on one hand, they're saying we can fix Kirk. And I'm saying, I'm not sure you can, but okay, give it a shot. Give it a shot. You're going to open up the hood of the car. You're going to get in there with your tools. You're going to do some work, and maybe it can spruce up the car. But you're doing it without going out and buying parts that I think you need. And I just don't see how Garrett Bradbury is fixable.
Yeah.
Like, I'll start there. He's tried. And look, this is no judgment on him as a person, but as a player with the interior linemen defensively that you now deal with, I just don't see how that works. Unless you think, and if this is the case, kudos, but unless you think, you know what, Wyatt Davis can play, like he's good, like we're confident, we're going to paint this as an open competition, but we're pretty damn sure that the 3rd round pick from 2021 can emerge. If you don't think that, do you really think that running Udo back or Jesse Davis, who I think sounds like a backup swing type of guy, is a good idea? So on this one, I remain perplexed. I'm willing to move on from a lot of what we thought previously and say, okay, let's just wait and see now. This one, one hand, you're like, we're going to make the most out of Kirk. And then you're still making, in my opinion, some of the same mistakes and misjudgments that were made by the previous administration.
Yeah, it is. I guess. So I have a thought on this, a Rams comparison here when it comes to Bradbury. But if your entire goal here is to maximize the quarterback position, which is all they've talked about, right? Not all they've talked about. They talk about defense and stuff too. But the most important thing here is, how do we maximize the passing game? How do we dictate terms offensively? How do we create how do we create the illusion of complexity, right? Like that was a buzz phrase during the first couple of press conferences.
Yep.
And if you want to dictate things offensively in the way that they talk about, you can't just be collapsing as an offensive line every 3 plays or whatever. So
Right.
why they would look at this unit and say, yeah, we're pretty much like we're going to patch with a couple borderline starters and we're just gonna kind of coach them up. I mean, it's a gamble. However, the comparison that people are making, or I've seen this a couple places, and I've dug on this a little bit too. The Rams drafted Brian Allen in the 4th round out of Michigan State in 2018. Now, he became their starting center for half the season in 2019, and he was pretty terrible. Brian Allen was below average grade across the board, and particularly as a pass protector, he was Garrett Bradbury-like in his PFF grade. I'm not going to sit here and pretend to have watched actual film on Brian Allen. I'm just going off of what other smart people have said looking at the film. That he was one of the worst pass protectors in the league in 2019. Passable as a run blocker, which is, I think, how you would describe Bradbury. Like Bradbury isn't awful as a run blocker. He can get out in space. He's nimble. He can get to the second level. He's just getting forklifted off the line of scrimmage. That was kind of Brian Allen in his first couple seasons in the NFL.
Okay.
He then suffers a devastating knee injury and misses the entire 2020 season. Comes back in 2021 as the starting center for an eventual Super Bowl winning team. And he was one of the highest graded centers in the NFL. Elite run blocker and became above average as a pass protector. These dudes are the same size. They're both 6'2", 6'3", a whiff over 300 pounds. Like, in the morning, they're probably 298. After they eat a couple sandwiches at lunch, they're probably 301.
Little Chipotle.
So are they looking at Garrett Bradbury and saying, all right, well, we're in cap hell. He's still cheap. Now, don't they have to make a decision on that? They have to make a decision in the next month on exercising his 5th-year option.
I believe it's by May of, yes.
So they're not going to get to watch him play in a game. They have to make that decision on his 2023 contract, the 5th year, before watching him play a game. But for this season, they're looking at the cap situation, and they're saying, man, offensive-minded head coach, let's get a coordinator and a offensive line coach who know what they're doing, and let's turn Garrett Bradbury into Brian Allen and solve that problem. I think that's what they're thinking. That's projecting the best-case scenario, which isn't always the most effective way to go about it.
Sure.
But I think that's what they're thinking at this point.
That's a lot of hope right there.
It is.
So to be clear here, I'm also confused on their behalf because they want to win. But personally, on this one, I don't care as much because, one, I don't care if they win in 22. And two, to your point, contractually, it's not an issue. Like, I wanted them to move on from guys who would have contractually created more cap room. So, like, I'm just confused. I'm perplexed on their behalf because the stated goal doesn't necessarily fit what they're doing. But as far as, if it works, great. If it does not, that's fine too. So, like, this is all it's all really interesting in what they're doing given their stated goal, if that makes sense. Because personally, my goal would have been to retool a bit with roster construction and probably more importantly, cap construction. Bradbury's actually not, it's not like he's being paid a lot at this point in time.
So what would you
what
would you do there? So if they're running it back with Bradbury, it's interesting because they're saying we still think that was a first round pick. Maybe it was a little bit of a reach, but that's a first, second round graded player that just hasn't reached his potential yet. And we think we can get more out of him.
Yes.
But at the same time, I would guess that they're probably, based on his 3 years so far, not going to exercise the 5th-year option for 2023.
Yes, I agree.
So they would go into the final year of his contract, hope to breathe some life into him, and then if they do, he either walks and goes somewhere else, or he's just more expensive for you to re-sign. It's just an interesting circumstance with him because on one hand, they're I'm not going to say probably because we don't know what they're going to do, but within the next month, they might say, you haven't been good enough for us to exercise the 5th year.
Right.
However, on the other side of our mouth, we think there's a great player in there. and we're going to develop him over the next 4
Well-
months leading into training camp.
But that might be the perfect example of the differing viewpoints in the building, right?
Well, as a coaching staff, you sort of have to look at every player and think, what's the best case scenario and how can we get there?
But
as a front office, you have to be more realistic than that. You can't just project best case scenario for everybody. That's not the real world.
But what I'm saying is, if the Wilfs and the higher up the chain with the Vikings have said, we need to win now. We need to win now. And Kwesi's like, okay, guys.
Yeah.
This actually makes some sense. And then you don't, in May, pick up the 5th-year option. And so you just sort of play this thing out. I can't wait till the season starts to see how this goes, because I do feel like there are definitely differing viewpoints on where things are. And it doesn't feel, Phil, super cohesive. Like, I think the coaching staff is going to do the absolute best, but that's their job. But I'm saying from a front office standpoint, it feels like there's definitely people on different pages. And so everyone's sort of trying to serve an agenda that works. And I guess what I'm really interested to see is ultimately when this game of poker or chess plays itself out, is somebody playing 3D, and you're going to look back in a year or so and say, oh, I get it completely now. That was smart. And if somebody is, who was it?
Yeah. Or maybe they're just caught in the median, which is kind of where this franchise has been for a long
the
time.
benefit of the doubt, but yeah, you're right.
And that's the crazy thing about this is if they're stuck in the median, which is all right, we're going to try and kind of compete but keep this alive for the future, and they stay relatively healthy, they're going to win 8, 9, 10 games. They might even win a playoff game. Who knows? And then and then it's the carrot that's constantly dangling a little too far in front of you. You can see it, but you're never going to actually catch it. And all of this sort of screams competitive, definitely competitive. If this team stays healthy, they've got the weapons. I do like a couple of the defensive swaps that they've made, and I think the coaching staff is going to connect better with these players, and they're going to be competitive this season. How competitive can they be? How satisfied are people going to be if they win 9 games and sneak out a road playoff win and then get smashed in the divisional round?
They'll celebrate.
They did a few years ago. I
know. I think they'll be thrilled. They'll say, "See, it was all Zimmer. It was all his fault."
Yeah. So okay, I put a pin in this so we could circle back. You've sat at those breakfast tables, right? At the owners'
couple
meetings?
times. I covered one in Orlando and one in New Orleans.
So what's it? So it's just like a round table.
It's a buffet.
Are all 32 coaches eating at the same time at their team tables, and then the team media can just go and sit? If you're a national media person, can you have breakfast with Andy Reid for a few minutes and then go over here? Okay,
it's great. So it's a buffet, and I'm talking a good one too. Like you got the first class eggs, you got waffles, you got fruit, tons of fruit, very healthy.
Is there an omelet bar?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that there was. I mean, this is rich people being rich, so there better be one.
Yeah.
And so there are. It's a ballroom, and they do the AFC coaches. I think they did them early, and it's early. It starts at 7 on Monday, and then the NFC coaches started, I believe, at 7 this morning, and they have round tables with of course the team insignia thing, like the little flag or the little placard with the team name, and the coach goes and sits there, and you can come and go. You can go
all on the record, right?
The entire time, all on the record, because people are coming and going. So you can't be like, hey, this part is because Albert Breer could come up, right? Peter King could come up. Yeah. So it's all out there, and you can basically ask questions the entire time.
Are the coaches eating the entire time? Like they're there for an hour? They just have to keep shoveling food in their mouth? Or
some of them are, yeah. Some are.
Andy Reid is.
Yeah. Sean McVay, probably not so much.
Matt Rule probably is.
O'Connell, probably not.
Cliff Kingsbury, he's going keto, so he's be choosy.
Matt Rule definitely is. So, but they'll just basically answer questions the entire time. And I think it's an hour. So it's good access, and it's relaxed, and it is really, if you're ever going to get a guy to open up about like philosophies and strategies, that's it. It's a lot of fun. It's really, really good.
And there's a lot of great nuggets. We're gonna cover more in depth on Purple Daily today. So there's probably 8 or 9 just really interesting things that Kevin O'Connell said about. I mean, he even made a comment about how they're gonna handle key situations like end game, 4th down type situations.
Yeah, I saw his philosophy on that. That's interesting.
It's not and the Vikings. I think the front office has been analytically friendly in recent years.
Yes.
How much of that information was being embraced by the old coaching staff and the old head coach is in question.
And Zimmer actually did have Zim was not completely adverse for going for it on 4th down.
He was actually pretty aggressive on 4th
down. Yeah, but he definitely crumbled up some pieces of paper that were presented to him. I know that.
And I think when it comes to like down management, right? Second and long. What's the optimal type of play to run in certain down and distance situations? They were mostly just run the ball.
And you've been saying this for years, and they finally did it. But the most important thing is to have a guy by your side, or at least talking to you through what you should do.
Yep.
Like that's easily the most important.
There's 4 minutes left.
Yes.
We've got 2 timeouts. Like there should also be someone that's just telling you to not call a timeout.
Right.
The thing that drives me, and we'll get more into this in Purple Daily, but the thing that crushes me when I watch football is like, and PJ Fleck does this all the time. It's early 3rd quarter. It's a close game, so you know that you're going to potentially need timeouts later to finagle possessions. And it's 3rd down and 4 or 3rd down and 8, and the play clock's running out. And you're at your own 8-yard line or something. Like you're probably not going to do anything anyways, and you burn a timeout so that you can save the 5 yards. Like you need a coach to tell you, just take the delay. It's not worth a timeout being out of our pocket late in the game.
And like, what is the pride thing about basically I managed the game? Like you've got 1,000 things on your plate. I've got no problem with a coach who's like, when it comes to should I challenge or the conduit from the guy upstairs or timeouts, right?
Mm-hmm.
I never think, well, that coach can't, I think that guy looks like a moron, but if he had a person helping him, I would never say, well, that coach isn't a good head coach.
I think, actually, you know what? I got another thought on this. I'm going to make people listen to Purple Daily today because I have a thought on what a head coach's role should actually be on game day. So we'll get to that on Purple Daily today. That's right. By the way, this discussion about offensive line position battles at right guard for the 9th straight season or whatever, presented by our friends at Federated Mutual Insurance Company. They've been around for over 100 years, protecting businesses and helping businesses maximize their potential and their success. It's like developing a great offensive line, really. You can find a full list of industries Federated protects at federatedinsurance.com. And remember, at Federated, it's our business to protect yours.